is a brother or sister.
Whether we could produce a new TV commercial to show the pride of people in being parents, the extension of self. The father is so proud to show, this is my son, you know.
The Family Life Education Unit, meeting here, was until recently advocating that families have 2 children or less. Trouble was that while middle-class Chinese obeyed, Malays and Indians did not. And just as alarming to the social engineers, it was the poor and uneducated, not the bright and sophisticated, who were passing on their genes.
The majority of the problem is a lot of women are just not prepared to have big families.
This committee is trying to decide whether the next round of advertising is best directed at men or women.
Yeah. It cannot be just, you know, as it was in the past. Then with women out at work, it's going to be very difficult for them to take on and have additional children if they're going to be expected to do everything in the house and the man, you know, wait by and have even his slippers brought to him. Yeah, so it's going to be quite difficult.
Right. That one I go along with you, that as far as the home goes, there must be balanced responsibility.
Right. It's not necessarily going to look like the board because children can't always perform to order.
The average Singapore woman doesn't have her first child until age 27. The government is trying to lower the age and thus increase the output.
Why do you object to because the pool, although we have public pools, the scene might give you some kind of a impression that it is a private club pool, which is a little too upmarket for the general population we want to aim at.
We're a bit disappointed about that because I think it will give us a very good visual start, a sort of Hockney-like swimming pool scene with the glinting water and the children popping out one after the other to emphasize the 3 kids.
Fam, 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 families are fun. Life means much more. When you're dad and mum, you just can't beat it. So come join us, come. Families are fun. You've got a place that's deep inside their hearts, warm and tender. From the very start, it lasts a lifetime. It'll never part. Fun, families are fun. Fam, 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 fam. Families are fun. Life means much more when you're dad and mum. So come join us, come join us, come. Wow, 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 wow.
Maybe so study against Singapore, water, and so US for like...
The new Singapore, the Switzerland of the South. Eager moneymakers communicating with their keyboards. A generation more responsive to a dip in the dollar than a pretty face and suggestive smile. Better equipped to do a deal than ask someone for a date. In the late 80s, the Singapore government became alarmed when it learned that 40% of women graduates were so busy achieving they weren't meeting and marrying. So it set itself up as a matchmaker, introducing young graduates.
We all need introductions to help us along in life, in business.
Nice to meet you, Jane.
To get better service, even to get a good mechanic. So why not an introduction to someone who might be able to make life better for you?
Peter, this is Pauline.
Hi, pleased to meet you.
Hello. Actually, Liz has told me quite a bit about you.
Oh, bad, I'm sure.
After all, it's just an introduction. The rest is up to you.
And if nothing comes of that, the government campaign advised, why bother with old-fashioned notions like love?
Where is my dream girl?
Where's the man of my dreams?
I spent so much time waiting for her to walk into my life. Just waiting and waiting.
How long should I wait?
Why not reality? You could wait a lifetime for a dream.
Depending on their HSC passes and the number of children they have, these couples could get up to $20,000 in government incentives. Whether the result will be the Aryan fantasy of an awesomely intelligent new generation, that remains to be seen. The important thing is that politicians believe it will. And while ever the likes of Lo Meng Si are in the driver's seat, the social engineering will continue.
People were amused when the Prime Minister raised the subject of many of our women, educated women, not marrying. They are obviously the best people to be able to bring up good children. The trends indicate that something, if not done early, may pose problems for Singapore. And if one speaks to the young ladies these days, they understand the problem.
As far as Low is concerned, there's too much roaring and drum beating going on about Singapore's attitude to personal freedoms. He believes the West would be better served looking after its own problems.
I wouldn't say Western values as a whole are bad. Western attitudes are bad. It so happened that there are some peculiar Western habits that are of concern to us. For example, attitude with regards to the balance between work and leisure. The work ethos should be in the right place, in the right amount. What we would like to see is that our young take all the good values from all societies, whether Oriental or Western, and not necessarily the West only, but the bad things about the East should also be addressed. I think we are doing it through educating our young with moral education, so that we will be able to help inculcate them to be good and useful citizens in later years.
Air hostess Alice Ung and her husband Darren have been thoroughly inculcated in the ways of Singapore. And so they're planning a family, a big family.
The latest government campaign is, well, it's encouraging women to have 3 children at least. Even before the campaign came out, I've always wanted to have a family of 4, because I think that would be nicer than having 2 or 1 child in the family.
Lord, we want to thank you for this occasion that we can gather as a family.
Alice's family are Christians, and at this family gathering, Alice's prayer is that she and Darren will soon have a place of their own. In Singapore, the government has that in hand too. This is the head office of the Housing Development Board, known as the HDB. Alice is here to put her name down for a flat. It's the most important shopping expedition of her life. From a number of planned developments, she can choose the block she'd like, state a preference for floor and for layout. And she can reasonably expect every mod con, including clean lifts.
Good morning, HDB. Can I help you, please? Yes.
All of Singapore's new housing projects are connected to a central computer, which, among other things, can detect when a person has urinated between floors in a lift.
Block 108.
The doors close automatically, the culprit is trapped, and later, publicly humiliated. Like practically everything in Singapore, the apartment blocks and the amenities have been financed out of an amazing government enterprise called the Central Provident Fund. It's a compulsory pension scheme, and Alice, along with every other wage earner, pays into it about 40% of her salary.
What do you want to select? 220.
Now that Alice and Darren are ready to buy a flat, she is being loaned money out of the fund at very low interest. The government has, in effect, dictated how much she saves, how much she'll be allowed to spend, and on what.
Yeah, we got the flat on the 11th floor. Yeah, we got to wait 2 years before we get it. They sent us a letter to inform us about it.
Everyone wants to save to achieve their dreams. Do you agree? You and I, my dear friends, have to listen to people's dreams. You and I, my dear friends, have to make sure those dreams are properly built on the foundation of life insurance.
Selling another dream and another form of saving is Alan Pathmaraja, General Manager of Great Eastern Life Insurance, and a man who has an almost evangelical commitment to Singapore.
The speaker said yesterday, must become very professional. Are you going to commit yourself, my dear friends? Yes, I will. Yes, I will ensure that we are professional. Do you all agree you will make every effort to lay this foundation of professionalism? Do you agree, my dear friends? Not loud enough. I want this building to come up. Do you agree?
The higher
Alan Pathmaraja is originally from Sri Lanka, and like Europeans who do business here, has become adept at blending into this Chinese-dominated society. And like the songwriters Jeremy and Jim, he'll sing Singapore's praises without so much as a prod from a chopstick.
Singapore is a country which has a very good environment for business. There's a very good infrastructure, and the government encourages foreign investment. So all factors are favorable for good business climate. The more our neighbors do well, the better for us, and vice versa.
Entrepreneur might have become a dirty word in Australia, but not in Singapore. It's what's behind the country's success. Thousands of deal-doers like Alan Pathmaraja kicking their heels up in a free for most business environment. But Alan, along with the government, despairs that he is part of a vanishing breed. There's evidence of it at the seminars he runs for the government.
The environment in Singapore is conducive to developing entrepreneurs. Isn't it better than it was 10 years ago?
I would think so.
Yes.
But I think it's a different situation altogether. Because in the past, the environment is not there, but the spirit, entrepreneurial spirit is in the people. But currently, I think after the recession in Singapore in 1985, the government realized that we have to have a pool of entrepreneurs.
So in other words, what you're saying is, the more secure jobs there are available, then less people will go into entrepreneurship because they want the security of employment.
We actually like to have a good, secure job in one of those big companies after we graduate. So setting up our own business is, to us, we feel it's a bit risky.
So if you have that feeling, then it's not good for the country. That means we'll have all chaps going into multinationals, going into banks, going into life insurance companies, getting secure jobs, and then forgetting about developing your entrepreneurship spirit. And once you get married, you have children. You know, Singapore is encouraging people like you to get married very quickly. Once you get married, then you have a responsibility. Then your risk is greater because you have to look after your wife, your children. Am I right?
What we are thinking of is that they be treated like Singapore Sneakway, you know. But then
When Lo Meng Si changes hat from parliamentarian to shipping executive, he's also seeing the changes that are taking place in Singapore society. Lo is group personnel manager for Keppel's shipyards, and what he notices most is that he can't find Singaporeans who will do heavy or dirty work. So instead, Lo must bring in foreign workers. Getting them is no problem. Singapore sits in the centre of one of the world's great labour pools. The trick for Lo is ensuring he has enough guest workers to get the job done, while not too many that the country's delicate racial mix will be upset.
I agree. I think Lai's point may be correct, you know. Suddenly, you know.
Still, compared with his counterparts on the Australian waterfront, Lo has it easy.
I think we will agree that it will not be white. Okay.
At this management union meeting, the issue is the colour and style of new boiler suits. In Singapore, workers and bosses agree most of the time. There's only been one strike on the island since 1979, and that was settled in 48 hours.
Okay. Then the firemen, we agree lah, which one? That they will have the two-piece suit.
It's not a two-piece boiler suit, rather a three-piece pinstripe suit that Singapore envisages for itself. By the late 90s, Singapore wants to be a centre for service industries and information technology. That's what this satellite link-up is all about. Getting companies to take their manufacturing offshore, but leave their head offices. And Singapore has brought out one of its biggest guns to sell that message.
Trade and industry and in defence. He headed an economic committee which recommended measures which successfully pulled Singapore out of the recession.
The man on whom